official visit of a head of state to the Philippines with this administration. Now, how relevant is this? I mean, first of all, of who it is and what country is coming to the Philippines.
Well, technically speaking, I think it's the Japanese emperor who's considered as the head of state.
Correct.
So, so Shinzo Abe is the head of government. But since the emperor is more symbolic in terms of his functions and powers, the Prime Minister of Japan is seen as the real head of state.
Right.
Nonetheless, there's no way to underestimate or understate what's happening here. I mean, first of all, remember last year, the plan was Japan will be the first state visit by Duterte outside the ASEAN. And then, of course, in reciprocation for that, the Philippines will have Shinzo Abe as its first major head of state visiting the country. It didn't push through, but at least the Japanese on their part are making sure that they will be the first major country to pay respect and courtesy to the Duterte administration. Now, this is important on one hand because in a nutshell, the discussion right now is the Philippines isolated under the Duterte administration because of the war on drugs, because of the accusation of violation of human rights, because of Duterte's controversial rhetoric. So for the head of the government or state of the third largest economy in the world, a pillar of the Western Alliance, to come and visit the country, that in itself has huge symbolic value. And of course, the very fact that Shinzo Abe wants to build on the personal rapport by visiting probably even Duterte's house in Davao,
not only to Davao,
but also visiting his house. So there's a lot of personal diplomacy also happening here. So despite the huge difference in the personality of Aquino and Duterte, Abe wants to make sure that personal chemistry with the Philippine head of state will continue. The other thing we have to keep in mind is that this is Japan. And it's not only that Japan, in a nutshell, is the third largest economy in the world, one of the most advanced navies in the world is under their possession, but the fact of the matter is that Japan is probably our real best friend. I mean, if you look at the data and statistics, it's very clear that Japan is the most important country to us. Everyone talks about the United States, and then in more recent months, everyone's talking about China, and more recently about Russia. But the fact of the matter is that what numbers tell us is that Japan is the most important country for us, without a question. So now if you look at, for instance, aid, overseas development assistance, Japan in certain years was responsible for almost half of entire overseas development assistance to the country, around 46%. Over the years, if you look at the ODA of Japan, it exceeds everyone else by far. And then, of course, if you look at foreign direct investments, again, Japan has been leading the pack. I think as of 2011, they had more than $10 billion of FDI stock in the country. Much of the advanced infrastructure in this country, the PPP, you go around EDSA, you see it's Japan-Philippine cooperation. And Japan is expected to actually be even more important in the Philippine infrastructure landscape because now they're pledging not only with helping to deal with the traffic congestion in the Philippines, there's a multi-billion dollar, I think it's $60 billion project that was proposed by JICA to deal with the traffic congestion in Manila. And then a multi-billion dollar deal also in Mindanao to build railway and more infrastructure connectivity there. So Japan is expected to be important. Now, in more tangible terms, remember last year the Chinese made a $24 billion pledge and the Japanese made a $19 billion pledge. The operative term there is pledge. So those were just preliminary discussions and preliminary agreements. But when Shinzo Abe comes to the Philippines, that's where they're going to talk about how to actualize those pledges, how to get that $19 billion on the ground. In fact, as part of the schedule, there's supposed to be a closed-door discussion between the President of the Philippines and Shinzo Abe and members of the cabinet, probably here in Manila, so that they will discuss how to exactly make sure that Japan will remain as a pillar of the Philippine national economic development. Now, for Abe, this is also very important because Abe senses that the Philippines could slip through this straitjacket of regional alliances, which was essentially US, Japan, Philippines all together going tough on China. Now that the Philippines is engaged in a rapprochement, or if not strategic flirtation, with China and Russia, I think Japan feels the sense of urgency that they have to make sure that this lurch towards alternative powers away from the US will not go too far and too fast. And at the best, what they want to achieve is at least to slow down that process and make sure that the Philippines will end up with a very balanced relationship. And if relationship with the US will not improve, Japan wants to make sure that they will at least remain as an important partner for the Philippines to make sure that the Philippines will remain on board with regards to policies such as ensuring that China's assertiveness in the region will not get out of control.
Why are we so important to them? I mean, why so much support and so much, obviously, it seems like love and respect for the Philippines compared to other countries?
Well, it's a combination of factors. Economically speaking, since last February, under the China +1 strategy of Japan, Philippines is now the top destination for Japanese foreign direct investments. We have already surpassed Thailand, as far as I know. And as you know, most of the Japanese cars in the regions are made in Thailand. So there are plans on the part of Japan to diversify, not only away from China, but probably away from more traditional ASEAN partners like Thailand towards the Philippines, Vietnam, and Indonesia. So we are an important foreign direct investment target for the Japanese for a number of reasons, because of the consumer market size, and of course because of the relatively high levels of productivity compared to the wages that they give in this country. So one is that, and then of course the other factor also for them is, as I said, strategic. I think for Shinzo Abe, let's not forget, Shinzo Abe himself is also seen like a strong man. He will soon be one of the longest-serving Japanese prime ministers in the country. And under his leadership, what they have tried to do is to make Japan more than just a pacifist power, more than just a country that is protector of U.S. So what Japan has been trying to do is to create a much more proactive foreign policy for Japan. But in order for them to do that, they need regional support. Now remember, Japan has skeleton in the closet, and the skeleton in the closet are their atrocities during Second World War, and a lot of comfort women, the victims of Japanese aggression during Second World War, are still alive, including in this country. So in the past few years, under the Benigno Aquino administration, the Philippines was openly promoting Japan as a force for good, and they were always we were trying to assuage concerns that Japan will be militaristic if Shinzo Abe develops a much more proactive foreign policy. So in short, we became the #1 public relations campaigner for a more proactive Japanese foreign policy, as Shinzo Abe tries to remove more and more restrictions on their ability to project military power. So as Abe wants to reconfigure the Japanese foreign policy and chip away at some of the dimension of its pacifist constitution imposed after the Second World War, they need regional support, and that's where the Philippines is important. So far, as much as Duterte has said so many beautiful things about China and Russia, asking them to be our protector and ally, remember he always also said very good things about Japan. If anything, consistently he said that when it comes to Japan's assistance to the Philippines, it's second to none. And this all goes back to his history with Japan in Davao. Remember that Davao's development was largely also because of the plantation business that was there, and the Japanese have been involved there for more than a century. And in the recent decades, while Duterte was the mayor of Davao, the Japanese had a very cordial and good relationship with him, and there were the major investors there. So that kind of good relationship during the Davao days have been carried over now, regardless of the fact that relationship of the Philippines with the U.S. is changing, and the relationship of the Philippines with China, the #1 arch nemesis of Japan, is also improving. So they want to also maintain that kind of strong relationship they have with Duterte, and hope that Duterte, just like Benigno Aquino, will also promote Japan as a force for good, so that Shinzo Abe can convince his critics at home that what he's doing is right for the country and right for the region.
All right. Now as he graduates from mayor to president, top of his agenda, war on drugs, Japan has been kind to him, let's put it that way. They haven't criticized him publicly. They've in fact showed support and intimated support for the war on drugs, for rehab centers and whatnot. How important is that for Duterte on a personal level? That is, given the numbers, they're there. It's obvious. They're the one of the best in supporting us. But in terms of Duterte liking Japan, liking the way they see us in terms of what he wants to do in the Philippines, how critical is that?
I mean, it's exciting to watch what's happening, right? It's like a bidding war. It's a battle for the heart and mind of Duterte that is happening here. And of course, as far as Shinzo Abe is concerned, among major powers allied to the West or Western countries, they're the only one that has never really openly criticized him, plus also offered assistance to the Philippines openly. I think the British are also offering assistance, but they have done it much more quietly. Now, Japan last December, they sent a special team to go around to survey the situation. They visited the rehabilitation center here in Taguig. So they have already a working group that is looking at how Japan can help the Philippines in ways that is also consistent with Japanese values of democracy and human rights. And I think a focus on rehabilitation centers, building a focus on training of our doctors in order to deal with people who have been engaged in usage of illegal drugs. That's where the Japanese can help us. And remember, Japan, I think, has the best track record in the world in dealing with issues of rehabilitation. So there's a lot that they can offer us. So personally, I think that's the first thing that Duterte will look for. And the second thing is investment in Mindanao. That's what he's very excited about. I think that's a legacy.
And how important is it that he's bringing Abe down to Davao, not just to his house, but how big is that he wants him to meet the local businessmen there as well?
Well, I think this is something that is unique that is happening, right? Now we have two capitals in this country. In fact, some of the folks are suggesting probably he'll go straight to Davao and not through Manila anymore. I think that's definitely part of building the personal rapport with Duterte. And I'm sure other heads of state will try to follow through. But Abe is definitely setting the trend and how to build trust with Duterte and win his heart and mind.
How critical is it that the Philippines is very cautious with the new relationships with China with reference to Japan, because there's been talk as well that he's assuring the Japanese that there's no military alliance with the Chinese. I mean, how sensitive will they be, the more we get close and chummy with the Chinese?
Right. I think that's exactly what Abe is trying to achieve here. I think he's going to try to convince Duterte to go slow in China, to not be convinced by their rhetoric, and actually look at what's happening on the ground. And I think that's what he's going to do. And he's going to also reassure Duterte that if things go south with China in the West Philippine Sea, then Japan is willing to help the Philippines.
All right. Well, again, as you see, flashing on your screens, this is just how amazing the support from the Chinese, from the Japanese are. This trade surplus is mind-boggling compared to other countries.
We have a $6 billion trade surplus with Japan. In fact, Japan is one reason why we have a huge reserve of foreign exchange that is helping us and cautioning us against volatilities in international markets. Now, you look at that number, more than 40% of total overseas development assistance came from Japan. That's how important Japan is to our country. And of course, if you look at also the foreign direct investment, Japan has been one of the most important countries to us. And they will even be more important as they try to push ahead with their so-called China +1 strategy of investing more in ASEAN countries.
All right, we will see as the things develop tomorrow when the Prime Minister arrives tomorrow in the Philippines, and how historic that will be for the Philippines and for Japan. Richard,